There's a lot of differing opinions in fantasy football, but that's also what makes it great. Everyone has something different to play for. If you can't, then it becomes really hard, and then you end up, maybe hurting each other's feelings.
Welcome to the Credible Commish, a series celebrating the backbone of fantasy sports, and that is the commissioners who run their leagues the right way. This is the first ever episode, and what better way to start than with my good friend, Johny Nguyen. He's the commissioner of the Tim Tebow Fantasy League, which is my longest running league. Happy to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So first off, we get to know the person behind the commissioner. So Johny, tell them where you're from.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Tucson, Arizona, but I am not a fan of any Arizona sports, and that's probably because everyone else is, right? So I try to bob when everyone's leaving, or however that goes.
So then, who is your team?
My team for football is the Atlanta Falcons, unfortunately, and so it's been a tough few weeks being a Falcons fan. I was actually a pretty bad month with the James Pierce Jr. stuff. So I feel like every sports team I'm a fan of, we love to just mortgage our future and go all in and then come up short. So it's been a pretty rough time being a sports fan, but I'm a very loyal person, and that's why I'm still a fan.
I mean, new coaching regime, hopefully better days ahead, and you've always got Bijan. So
Yeah, we have the superstars, we just don't have anything else. And then we're gonna end up like the Steelers, where we're just very 500 for the longest time. Hopefully that doesn't actually happen, but yeah, maybe I'm just numb to it at this point, and it's just something that I'm used to.
spoken like a true fan, not having a whole lot of faith in the team. I mean, I didn't have a lot of faith in the Seahawks last season, and look how that turned out. So you mentioned you're a Falcons fan, but you're from Arizona. How come? How did that happen?
Yeah, back in middle school is when I started getting into football, so that was a long time ago. But it was the Michael Vick era, right? And I didn't have a team yet, and I was just getting into football. And I remember one day during lunch, we were talking about like everyone's favorite team, and I had a friend. He was an Eagles fan, and at the time, I just remember the Eagles and the Falcons were both 4-0, and so I was like, oh, I'm just gonna jump on this team. They seem like they're good. They're 4-0, and my friend is a fan of the Eagles, so I'm just gonna be a fan of the Falcons instead. Uh, Obviously he chose the better path than I did, but we're it's all good, and I've just been a fan ever since. Started watching them play, and obviously watching Michael Vick is electric. And back then you can only see the primetime games because we didn't have streaming back then, so you can see whatever's on TV, which was not a lot of games. So I got to watch him in the playoffs, and that's kind of where he shined. So yeah, that was great to be able to start that trend and just be a fan ever since and go through the ups and downs.
Oh yeah, and then Michael Vick ended up on the Eagles, so your friend got to benefit from that as well.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like the Falcons is just a pathway for other players and other teams to just have success. That's what it seems like.
Well, hopefully Bijan sticks around because that guy's electric.
Yeah,
Hopefully it works out.
yeah. We're keeping Kyle Pitts this year, which he started coming on last year, and I'm excited to see how that goes because Kevin Stefanski was a very much a tight end person back in Cleveland, and we're hoping that we can replicate that success. And he's on my fantasy team, so my dynasty league. So that's the most important part.
Oh, definitely. So you mentioned Falcons playoff games. Is that your earliest memory of football? Do you have like a single moment that you remember is like, this is my first memory of football?
This one's kind of funny. I do remember I didn't really understand like playoffs. I didn't understand like seeding. I didn't understand the time of the year. I don't even remember what time of the year it was, but I remember watching a game, and I was like, "Oh, Dad, is this the Super Bowl?" But it was probably like week 3. I just didn't know at the time, and I was like, "Oh, is it the Super Bowl right now?" He's like, "No, we're in the regular season. What are you talking about?" I was like, "Oh, okay." Well, and I just kept watching the game, and I just remember like back then where I just didn't know a lot about football, and I was just remember watching. I had so many questions and inquiring about it, and then that just turned into where I'm at now, and just always loving the every. I feel like every time you watch football, you learn something new, and that's just how it's kind of been since then. So that was my probably my first memory of it.
Nice, man. You've always
Yeah,
been a student of the game, quote
I'm
unquote.
trying to be. Yeah,
Well, thanks for sharing your earliest memories of football and just kind of your background. Switching gears, since this is a show about commissioners, let's go to the beginning of your commissioner journey. How did you first become a commissioner?
yeah. I mean, it's the same league that you mentioned at the very start of this, the Tim Tebow League. It wasn't the Tim Tebow League back in the day. When we were in college, we had this like association called APASA, and so it was the APASA Fantasy Football League, and our good friend Saman was the commissioner of it, and it was back when it was on Yahoo, when Yahoo was, one of the leaders in fantasy sports, but he wasn't the best commissioner. He wasn't bad. He was just, you know, he just did everything last minute, and
Bruh.
I was like, oh, this would be fun to like, get together. And like I can actually like try to run this, and we'll change up the settings and all this stuff to make it more fun. So it wasn't really a conversation of me taking over. I just took over. And I don't remember if I just created a new league and re-invited him, or if it was kind of just, oh yeah, Johnny's going to run this league now. So I kind of stole the position from him, but it maybe worked out, and he's still a member of the league. So
Yeah,
that's
honestly, he was probably thanking you. It's such a it's a job that nobody wants. So you
it's a
stepping
thankless
up.
job. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the other thing is I'm in this other league. It's probably 3 or 4 years right now. Someone else was commissioning it, and then I just took over. So if I were
Oh
you,
my.
I'd watch your back.
Oh man.
But but I think that one makes more sense because he was, the person that was commissioning it before me. They were going through some things, and I was like, you know what? I'll just help you. I am the co-commissioner, the vice commissioner, whatever you want to call it. But then I was like, I'm just gonna take over because it's August right now. We got to get things going right now. We got to start collecting payments, and so I was like,
All
we
right.
gotta get it
You heard
moving.
it here first, folks. If you are tired of commissioning your league, just get Johnny into your league, and he'll make his way to
Hmm.
the top.
Oh yeah, I usually you know try to at least be one of the co-commissioners because I always have decent ideas. Maybe
So you mentioned two. Is Are those the only two leagues that you commish for now?
those are the only two, but then I'm in a few other leagues. But those are the ones that I primarily like take charge in. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Um, so what keeps you back, or what keeps you coming back every year to run those leagues?
I think that I mean for me, I just enjoy making people happy, and I think that I try to come back and I try to keep things fresh every year. I try to get people's opinions of how they would like the league to be run, and trying to implement different ideas that we have just to keep things fresh. I know fantasy football is fun in itself, but for me it's being able to come back and talk to everybody. Some people I only talk to in fantasy football, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a nice common interest that we all have. That's when the talk starts to happen, and but that's when you start to just randomly talk about things just because you guys are already talking. So it's just the camaraderie and all of it. And I understand that commissioning is not an easy job. It's something that requires a little bit more time, maybe a little bit more money to just be able to provide for the league, whether it be getting prizes at the end of the year, whether it comes out of the pot and all that stuff. And it takes some organization, and it's not necessarily a burden I want other people to face, especially if they don't want to. So just being able to offload that, because I feel like I have a good handle on it now. The only hard part about all of it is finding people that
Mm,
finding replacements for people that decide not to want to come back. Um,
mm.
but when it's solid, when it's the same core people every year, it gets things more excited to come back. And like people get excited when you start bringing up, hey, it's that time of the year again where we are starting to pay dues. For some reason, people love paying me money to or like love collect or love spending money on this, and they get excited when it's that time of the year. So just building up that excitement for the season during draft time and all that stuff like that. That's where it starts. And throughout the season, it's a grind, but it's all there's always a payoff at the very end, whether it be actual money or just seeing people have fun and be happy. That's kind of what brings me back every year.
Oh yeah, and I'm excited to come back this year.
Mm.
Last year was my streak was broken in the Tim Tebow Fantasy League. I had made the
Mm.
playoffs every single year, and unfortunately, that streak came to an end. But I feel like the
That's what
pressure's
happens
off.
when yeah, that's what happens when you draft Lamar Jackson on his the worst possible year. Yeah,
Yeah, that in our league, that was like a guaranteed route to the championship,
I
at least
would
the
say like
championship game.
three or four times in a row. It was either you had Lamar Jackson or you were new to the league. Um, I
Yeah.
benefited when I had Lamar Jackson. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Uh, um, yeah. But yeah, I'm still looking forward to it. I might not draft Lamar Jackson though.
it's going to be hard too.
So let's talk about maybe the harder parts of commissioning a league. Have you ever had any big league controversies or drama that you want to reflect on?
I think some hard parts of commissioning is trying to get alignment with different rules that we should implement or different ways we should handle situations. A few years ago, I was on the very losing end of this, where we we had our playoff format changed in our league because I was just thinking, man, I feel like it's almost every year there's somebody that has a ton of points, has a really good team, but just always plays the best team in that league. So I had proposed that we consider points as a metric to get into the playoffs, and not necessarily the person with the highest points should get into the playoffs, but how can we make it work to where we're playing for something even if we have a losing record or even if we're currently out of playoffs with our record? Because record is somewhat luck, right? It depends on who you're playing, and you have zero control over who your other team sets. Whereas in like football, you actually play defense to prevent the other team from scoring. In fantasy football, you don't necessarily do that. And so, how can we make it to where we can bring a team that didn't make it record wise into the playoffs? And so it was just hard getting alignment on that because there was a lot of debate whether if the team was winless and they scored a lot of points, should they probably don't deserve to make the playoffs because they have zero wins, right? So we took that spectrum of it, but then trying to make it work in a situation where okay, we have six playoff positions, right? Three divisions, three wild cards. Can we have it to where that very last spot, there's a lot of teams playing for it? And so we did end up trying to find a good solution where if you're in that middle of the pack of teams that didn't make the playoffs, then you have a chance depending on if you scored enough points. So then it becomes something that people play for every year. And I guess just but getting alignment on what team should be involved and how we should format that was probably the hardest part because everyone has very different opinions on who deserves to make the playoffs, who if wins do matter, if points matter, if or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of differing opinions in fantasy football, but that's also what makes it great because there's everyone has something different to play for. Everyone has something different and a different view, and if you can kind of combine all of that together, then it becomes something really great. But if you can't, then it becomes really hard, and then you end up, you know, maybe hurting each other's feelings because you don't agree or whatnot. But I try to make things not personal. I try to make things not feel like it's just because you have an idea that wasn't chosen is not a bad idea, right? That's why I always try to vote on different rules. And then, we live in a democracy, so let's make it a democracy. Majority wins on most of our rule changes, unless it's a really critical one.
Mm,
Yeah. So I would say
yeah,
just getting alignment on different opinions is sometimes hard.
that's honestly a great answer, and I'm sure a lot of commissioners can empathize with that.
Mhm.
Um, but good for you on handling on trying to progress your league in the face of some people not wanting that change and trying to just make things work. So that's what good commissioners do, and you're clearly one of them. So since you're one of the great commissioners that I know. Um, tell the audience what's your setup. How do you make it so easy to run your leagues? What do you think? What are some tools that tools or tips that you can share?
I think one of the biggest things right now is making sure that you have a common place to message people. Because right now, there's 1,000 different ways you can get in contact people. There's texting, there's the actual, like on Sleeper, you have the in league chat, and some people prefer chats that you're already a part of you're already a part of with these people. So in one of my leagues, we use WhatsApp to chat, even though we use Sleeper that has an in-app chat, and sometimes there's chatting in both. But finding a good consolidated channel to message your group, that is very helpful. Um, and then also, there's something that I struggled with a lot, and what the FanCred has really helped with is collecting dues, and being able to manage that. Just because, for whatever reason, collecting dues is one of the hardest things. Is especially when it comes to, hey, the draft is in 2 weeks. You still haven't sent me, your $50. Can you send it to me on, or however you want to send it to me? And you have to like really push people to do it. And so collecting dues is so hard sometimes, just because you know people have different situations that they're in, and sometimes it's hard for them to do it, or they're super busy and stuff. But you know, finding good solutions to that is important. And then also just having consistency in your league is super important with how things are run and managed. Having a good timeline on when you reach out to people, having a good timeline on when the draft is going to be, especially if you're doing a live draft, it's much harder to coordinate time. One of
Mm.
my leagues has a live draft, and I will tell you, it is the hardest thing to schedule, because it's hard for us to schedule it on Sundays. It's hard because people are busy on Sundays. It's hard to schedule on Saturdays because it's the weekend, and we try to do this right in the summertime. Everyone's busy in the summertime,
Mhm.
and then you do it in the middle of the week. You have to do it after work, but then you have to account for traffic and things like that. So having a general time in which you're going to do things and letting people know ahead of time, like I think having a predictable way that you run your league helps members participate better, and they're more engaged. Something I just recently started is, for our draft order, we're using March Madness to do it, and whoever has the best March Madness bracket, they get to have the highest draft priority. So making that also makes it for a redraft league more exciting when it's in the off season, because you're actually playing for something related to fantasy football. So just trying to get engagement with throughout the year is really it's fun, because it keeps that excitement going, and then people get super excited. Like free agency just happened, and people are starting to get really excited about football. So I can see where building that excitement in the off season is really helpful, because it just gets people pumped, and it gets people more willing to participate and engage in all that kind of stuff. So finding a way to keep people engaged throughout the season and in the off season, that's also really important, because I
Oh
think that
yeah,
it builds further camaraderie with everyone.
exactly. Like you mentioned, like some friends in our Tim Tebow league, we only talk to them through that league. So the more touch points throughout the year that we have, it's just makes for a greater connection and
Mm-hmm.
keeping in touch that way. So let's get into some rapid fire questions
Oh man.
about you
Okay.
as a fantasy player, because commissioners are fantasy players too. So just some quick rapid fire questions. All right, who's your RB1 for the season?
Bijan Robinson, obviously.
Okay, who's your wide receiver one for the season?
I tend to go with Jamar Chase, so let's pick Jamar Chase.
Okay, and if you have the 101, which one are you picking?
I tend to go wide receiver when I have the choice, so I'll go with Jamar Chase.
All right. What is your favorite fantasy football format? Are you a dynasty guy? You a redraft guy? Best
I
ball?
I I love Dynasty because it's a different element. And yeah,
Any particular settings that you think is the best for dynasty?
I do like tight end premium, because tight ends are getting much harder to be usable. So I do like tight end premium and superflex because dynasty is too good of a format to only play one quarterback every week, especially when there are probably 18 to 20 startable quarterbacks each week.
Who's on your do not draft list this upcoming season?
I tend to go with the number two quarterback because Josh Allen's going to be number one, and he's almost always worth it, even if he gets picked in the second or third round. But I would say whoever is my QB2 on my list, I don't know who it is right now, but it's usually them because they're probably going to be overvalued where they're
Mm,
going in probably the third or fourth round. And I don't know, I just can't
that's
do
true.
that in a redraft league, obviously. So
I think maybe that's Lamar Jackson,
it might be Lamar
and
Jackson. I hope it is because I'm probably not going to draft him this year. Yeah.
awesome, awesome. So the show is called Credible Commish, and so what does that mean to you? What makes a credible commissioner?
I think a credible commissioner is someone who is fair, someone who doesn't play favorites, someone who is always willing to listen and improve for the betterment of the league. Uh, Having a league that is the same every year, if it works, great. But if not, it's always just somebody who is trying to improve your league or just trying to make sure that everyone is having a good time. Um, and that goes through making your league feel special and making your league feel like it is one of the leagues that they enjoy, your commissioner enjoys being into. So I always try to do something a little bit different for the leagues that I'm commissioning in, whether it be providing extra stats that you just don't get um, in like throughout the season, or having this full on playoff picture towards the end of the year that isn't native to like whatever platform that you're using. So just being able to give members just more excitement and keeping that up and being consistent. And you know I think consistency is a really big one for commissioners. Is if you're going to take a vote for one rule, take a vote for another rule. If you're going to change something that makes sense, change it. And just always being on top of like how the league is doing.
That's great insight. Thank you for sharing. We're wrapping up, and I want you to give one last piece of advice. What is one league rule every commissioner should adopt?
I think that something that I've recently learned is making making the draft. The draft is already really fun, right? But if you can make it to where the ordering of the draft can be an extra element, um, that is also something that I've enjoyed doing. Something that we do in one of my leagues is instead of determining the draft order based off of some event, like this year it'll be March Madness, make it to where you get to pick what slot you want instead,
Mm,
because I think there are different strategies around that. Some people like picking on the bookends. Some people like being in the middle, so that way the time between picks is the same. That's not me personally. I don't like doing that. I do like picking on the bookends. So if I have a high draft priority, then I get to choose where I want to pick. A lot of people won't pick the number one spot. They'll pick number two just because they don't want to be the number one pick because there's a lot of bad juju that goes with that. But I think being able to let people choose which slot they want based off of a priority list, I think that's something that I liked that we did last year, just because you get to see other people's strategies and kind of what they're trying to do as well.
oh yeah, I love the derby style where you're picking where you want to pick. I'm depends on the season. A
Mhm.
lot of time I'm a turn guy. I do love being close. I love being first or last or second to last. I just like those two picks in a row. It's nice.
And it adds an
Um,
extra element to the draft as well, on top of the already awesome element of drafting. So it just makes the drafting experience kind of more fun. And then sometimes you realize that you made a terrible decision and decided to be the fifth pick for whatever reason. Um, and you get to learn from that mistake as well, because sometimes you don't get the choice, but choosing and knowing like where you like to draft, and it also adds more like research into it, so it gives people more investment into the season as well. So
oh, 100%. All right, man. So, before you leave, tell us what are you looking forward to the most next season?
who's gonna throw the ball to my Falcons players? Because we've definitely had a revolving door of quarterbacks, and now we have two left-handed quarterbacks, and we might take a third one. Like we might go and get Dylan Gabriel for whatever reason. There is this Kevin Stefanski connection there, and I just want to know who's doing that because I have a lot of investment into Falcons players, and I will say quarterbacks make a huge difference when they're throwing to your players and being able to move the offense.
Yeah,
But
especially with
I do, yeah, especially which hand they're throwing with, and it's very interesting to see like the landscape of the NFC South because every year it seems like it's a toss up. But I think every team is like making a lot of moves in the NFC South. There's a lot of movement yesterday. The Panthers got Jalen Phillips, and that's going to bolster their defense. And Panthers were kind of good last year, surprisingly. I still don't believe in Bryce Young, but that's which is why I traded him away in Dynasty. But it's very interesting to see where the Falcons can compete in the NFC South because I feel like it is every year, but they just shoot themselves in the foot. So I'm looking to see if they can win, if they can actually not blow as many leads as they do. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
hey man, I think they've got a good as shot as anyone in the NFC South. So
Yeah. We
yeah,
built a culture of getting the lead and then blowing it. I feel like that's no longer a thing. Sorry, that is now a thing associated with the Falcons. Is just blowing the lead in like the last couple minutes of the game. It's a
oof,
thing
I
now.
mean, everyone knows about that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I see. I don't think I've gone a single season since the Super Bowl without hearing the words 28-3. I'm pretty sure.
Oh man, I yeah, that's a tough one. And it's
You
here
as a
just now.
Seahawks fan have gotten your redemption since the 1 yard run or lack of run. I have not gotten any redemption since then. If anything, it's been all downhill since then. So we're seeing if we can recover from that, which I don't think we ever will. So.
One day, right? You gotta have
One
fun.
day, maybe past my time. You know, I think I will always be a Falcons fan. My daughter is becoming a Falcons fan. Her favorite player is Bijan Robinson. She screams at the TV when he comes on the screen, and that's something that you can't that's priceless right there.
Oh,
But
that's sweet, and that's why we love football, man.
the problem is she knows who the Seahawks are, and she gets like a little excited when she sees the Seahawks logo. That will be
She's
that will be
surrounded by it.
that's the one. That's my biggest fear right now as a parent. Is that she's gonna want to become a Seahawks fan instead.
All right. Well, man, appreciate you sharing your story. Uh, every great league has a credible commissioner behind it, and you're clearly one of them. Um, I'm excited to. We're headed to the Fantasy Football Expo. We're going to represent FanCred there. I'm honored to have you as the first guest of this show, and hoping people learn from your commissioner tips and just get excited about their upcoming seasons. So
Yeah,
appreciate the
thanks for
time.
having me. Oh yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for everything you do for the leagues that you commission. I'm in a few of those, and I think you're an awesome commissioner as well. You should ask a bunch of these questions for yourself. That'd be interesting to do a self podcast. But thanks for everything that you do, and I'm very excited to see where the FanCred product and how high it can go because it's a really good product. It solves a huge problem, and it's even good for leagues where it is your home league. And you know, I talk to you all the time about it, and you always have great ideas. So I'm very excited to see how all those ideas come into fruition. And happy to be here. I love talking about football, and this is nothing different than that. So
Thanks for watching. We're going to be interviewing commissioners week after week on this Credible Commish series. I hope you learn from other great commissioners how you can run your leagues to the fullest, and hope to see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.